Let's start with the Saturday card, 141, 142, the Indianapolis Colts and the Buffalo Bills. Phillip Rivers and the Colts head outdoors to go play Buffalo. Normally we're looking at some snow, some rain, some windy conditions when we get after it. Not going to be the case this weekend. But the one thing that pops up, and we're going to volley back and forth on this game because it's really interesting, opens up around the 6.5 range. Kyle stays at 6.5. And also as we look at the totals, 51s across the board. I don't know how you slow down Buffalo, which is the key, because when we talk about the Indianapolis is going to score. They're not getting shut down. The Bills aren't holding the Colts to 14 points or 10 points. They're going to score with this offense. But the question is the leaking oil defense of the Indianapolis Colts, specifically in the secondary, going up against a red-hot juggernaut. That's going to be the key here.
Yeah, and, Buffalo's getting, got John Brown back last week, got him some reps, got him involved in the offense. So now you add a legitimate deep threat on the other side of Stephon Diggs, and someone that Josh Allen loves throwing the ball to John Brown. You go back and look at the full games that he plays, 9 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets, 8 catches. John Brown adds a really nice element to the offense, and they're going to need that. Cole Beasley most likely isn't going to play week to week. I saw Isaiah McKenzie start in the slot last week, get a couple of touchdowns. He's sort of that Swiss Army knife type of player in the slot. Buffalo's going to score points. And you look at the Colts, we're looking at a 22.5, 21.5 team total. I love the total there. And you have to say, of the 6 games, the 3 teams who, of the 3 underdogs who I think have the best chance to win, I think the Colts are right there, in the middle. They do have a legitimate chance to win. I know there's this narrative about Phillip Rivers in freezing cold weather, but that narrative actually doesn't hold water. If you look at the 11 cold weather games he played since becoming a starter for the Chargers, this is dating back to last year, 8-3 of those games, his completion percentage drops by about 2 percentage points, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You don't see a big drop-off. I know some people talk about, well, he's 0-3 in the playoffs. One of those games, he had a torn ACL against New England in that championship game. You had the other one, 17-mile-an-hour wind against Kansas City, and then a high-scoring loss to Pittsburgh in 2009. And he's never lost in the wild card round. Phillip Rivers is 4-0 in his career in the wild card round. It's going to be a really interesting game. I do think the Colts have a legitimate shot to win, but you're right. The problem is that defense. Will their offense be able to keep up with the Buffalo offense? Because you're not stopping Buffalo. You look on the other end, Buffalo really struggles against the run, especially in the red zone. Jonathan Taylor's been red hot. We know they have 2 other backs they like in Hines and Jordan Wilkins. I think the Colts have a legitimate shot here. This game's going to be a lot of fun. I like the over. I like the over team total here. Hard for me to pick a side. I'd lean Buffalo if it's going to be under 7. But again, the Colts have a legitimate chance to win.
Now, let's take a look going back in the season. On November 8th, they played the Baltimore Ravens. Actually had a lead in that game, but a fumble that was returned by the Baltimore Ravens really turned the tide in that game. And a great second half with adjustments and a nice win by the Ravens to go on the road and beat the Colts 24-10. The reason why I bring that game up is specifically the 10 points that the Indianapolis Colts scored. After that game on November 8th, Kyle, we got 34 points, 34 points, 26 points, 26 points, 44 points, 27 points, 24 points, and 28 points. This is an offense that moves. And I know when we talk about Phillip Rivers, a lot of times we look at the arm strength. Oh, it's not really good. And how do they move the ball downfield? T.Y. Hilton being healthy and worked back to the offense has ignited this offense. But also let's talk about something different. When we rely on getting ourselves into playoff mode, where you see teams operate in the nice weather conditions of September, October, and then realize, hey, we're going to have to go to some spots here if we're not home and playing cold weather conditions like you will have temperature-wise, but not wind-wise up in Buffalo. Look at Jonathan Taylor's last 5 games. I sent a tweet out earlier, and this is not like one of those things where Kyle would use him sparing, like, oh, he got 5 carries this game. He got 11 this game. He got 4 this game. 19.4 carries per game over the last 5 games, 7 yards per carry, 7.5 yards per carry, 5.2 yards per carry, 4.1 yards per carry, 8.4 yards per carry. If your running game is working with those big uglies up front that they have for Indianapolis, that's going to keep that Buffalo defense in check, because when Phillip Rivers does have a chance to throw deep, just like we saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which they lost that game early second half, he can throw that dart over the top. I would have a different mindset in this game, Kyle, if this was 30 degrees, 20-mile-an-hour winds, maybe some wind or snow, and say, whoa, this might have to be a slugfest on the ground, which I think Indianapolis would still do
Yes.
fine with that offensive line and that running game. But if you're going to make good weather conditions, this is not a downgrade. Where we see 30 degrees. Oh my God, dome team going out stores. This team is built differently here. They will score against Buffalo.
Absolutely. But Buffalo's defense, have they gotten better? Absolutely. But the fact of the matter is they still struggle against the run. They have one all-world corner in Tre'Davious White. He's terrific. Absolutely no doubt about it. But when you struggle as badly as they do against the run, allowing the third most yards per carry to opposing running backs in the NFL, you throw that in with their red zone rushing defense as well, allowing a 2.4 touchdown rate. I mean, it's a high number. The Colts are going to be able to move the football. They're going to score. Now, but the question is, which offense do you think dominates the other defense more? The Colts, if this was 8 weeks ago, we'd say, hey, the Colts one of the best defenses in the league. That's not the case anymore. They've really become a leaky secondary, as you mentioned. Bottom 6 in defensive efficiency, bottom 5 in overall defense since week 9. Buffalo's starting to tighten the screws just a little bit. Obviously, Josh Allen is a more explosive player than Phillip Rivers. Now, does that loss in the playoffs last year to Houston sort of stick in his head? Is there something weird going on there? I think he's pretty young. It's his first playoff game. I'm not putting a ton of weight into that, but it is something to sort of keep an eye on. We've seen some fourth quarter collapses by Buffalo even earlier this year. Remember that game against the Rams, etc. Of course, the Hail Mary to the Cardinals. So there are some of those late game things that Buffalo sort of struggles with. I like both these teams an awful lot. This is probably my favorite game of the weekend. I think this plays to an over. I just think that total's too low. Both offenses should be very competent. I don't think these are two shutdown defenses by any stretch of the imagination. Colts running game setting up to play action is going to be the key. If they can run the ball in Buffalo and get into play action, keep Phillip Rivers out of trouble, they're going to have a lot of success. And for Buffalo, it's the Josh Allen show because we know they don't really run the ball a lot. Singletary and Moss aren't that heavily involved in the offense. It's going to be John Brown and Stephon Diggs. Can they figure out a way to slow down Stephon Diggs? I don't know that they have the talent in the secondary to do so. They don't really use Xavier Rhodes in a shadow capacity. He stays on one side of the field. Even if they did, is that a matchup you really like, an older Rhodes versus a red-hot Stephon Diggs? A lot of points in this game. I do think Buffalo can get it done by a touchdown, but you are absolutely not crazy to take a flyer and put some money on the Colts money line here because I believe they have a legitimate chance to win this game.
Yeah, see, and that's what it's funny because if you read listen to my monologue here as I go on and pontificate about the Colts and how much I like them, this is like the second game because we'll talk about a little bit later the Washington football team. Outside of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I think are a shoo-in to win their football game, I can't see the Bills losing this game. Now, you guys know me. I'm more of a team total guy, a total guy that I look at, and I know the Indianapolis Colts will be able to score, but I can't see in this game. Look, I love Frank Reich. I love the offensive line. The defensive line is legitimate, but I have to take a step back sometimes and look at that Buffalo Bills offense, and it's detonating people. It is just amazing as it comes down the stretch. And then we take a look at the Colts defense here, Kyle. Look at even the last 5 weeks. 300 yards passing they've given up, 345, 342, 333, and to a team at Jacksonville basically quit 230 yards. Buffalo is elite, and if they're going to get John Brown back, Stephon Diggs is healthy, I don't see a lot out of Cole Beasley. If he comes back, it's a little bit of a plus, but they don't actually need him to move the football or do many things. He's just an added bonus in that offense. Josh Allen, and also look, we know he's got a strong arm. You don't think he likes to play on a clean surface with no windy conditions where he can just light it up all over the field? That's going to happen here. And to take a look at the chat box here, O+ says, weather's not an issue. It's very cold. We get that. Bills D allows 350 yards a game. I like the Colts' chances. Look, they're a very good organization. Would it surprise me if they won? It actually would. And I think when I look at that 6.5 number here, Kyle, it's almost baiting you, isn't it? Because most people are looking at this going, that's too many points. Like the Colts can keep it close. Can the Colts keep it close? Yes, they can. But I see that 6.5 number saying they're begging you to take the Colts in this spot. I doubt it goes to 7 because it's a key number. Then you got to win by double digits. But that number here, and specifically, again, the way I'm talking, if you didn't know which way I was leaning, like, damn, he really likes the Colts. I like the Colts to score, but I don't like the Colts to win the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the Bills win the game. I just don't think it would be. I wouldn't be like overly shocked, like, oh my God, I can't believe the Colts beat Buffalo. I don't think, I know Buffalo's red hot and everything, but I certainly don't think they're unbeatable. And the dude right here in the chat box, 31-24 Buffalo is legitimately the exact score that I was leaning at. I think that is right on the nose. So you get that 6.5. I like it. Now you're seeing a lot of sixes. Looks like Bovada with juice has 7, but other than that, it's sixes, 6.5s. So I do think that's the right bet to make. But if you don't think I'll be throwing a few bucks on the money line here on the Colts trying to get some value, I absolutely will. Just, look, so if you think it's going to be 31-24, all it takes is one silly play, a missed snap, a fumble, an interception, a bad call by an official. It's a little cold, a mishandle on a field goal attempt, and boom, that can flip in a hurry, and then you get yourself maybe into an overtime scenario. I do think this is a very close, competitive, fun game. I do think the smart play, the play that I like the most, of course, is the over. I do think the Bills get it done by a touchdown, but again, I don't think the Colts are overwhelmed here. I certainly don't think they're overmatched. I think they have a shot to win the game. Smart picks Buffalo, but I don't think you're crazy to take the Colts either.
Yeah, even taking a look and going back, because I'm always a recency bias type guy. Like, I really don't care what the Buffalo Bills did in September and October. It's really what have you done for me lately, specifically the last month. And when I look at that off, like, they didn't have to do much to beat Pittsburgh. 26-15, still had 104 yards on the ground, 230 in the air. But then all of a sudden they just kicked it in like, it's playoff time. They play Denver, a $182 on the ground with 352 in the air. New England Patriots, who only job in life is to just run the clock like their four corners offense, they still got 130 on the ground and 344 in the air. And last week coming into the game, which I thought was so impressive, where they knew they really didn't need the game because the Steelers were probably going to lose from tanking, and they still came in and wrapped up their business, throwing for 377 yards on offense in that game. It's amazing what that team can actually do, and I love the way they're rounding into form, because they could have taken the Pittsburgh approach, which we'll talk about in a little bit, saying, hey, you know what? We had one good half in the last month. Let's rest on it and get to the playoffs. The Bills said, no, we got pedal to the metal. 48 points, 38 points, and 56 points the last 3 games heading into the playoffs, man. They want some action here, and they're going to get it in the playoffs. So it'll be fun to see how they actually perform. I'll tell you also what's pretty good. 78,600 people hitting the subscribe button here on our YouTube channel with sportsbookraeview.com. If you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for the thumbs up there. If you're watching on replay, you can still hit the subscribe button. You can still hit the like button. You might not be able to get into the live chat, but you can always leave a comment below and be like, you guys are such idiots, man. Ain't no way Indianapolis is going to score any points this weekend. It's cold weather. Phillip Rivers, he's outside. He's old. He's in a dome, and he'll end up retiring at the end of the season. That's fine. We like those comments as well, but also keep that fire coming in the live chat box. Thank you guys for tuning in and spending your Thursday with us. But this is a fun time because, again, I do always preface this by saying outside the Washington game, I'm really excited for this card, though, and specifically starting us off here with the Buffalo Bills and Indianapolis Colts and good weather, because even when you look at all the games here, Kyle, you might have some colder conditions that we're used to, but no precipitation, no wind issues. We're going to get good football here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great weekend. And you're right. Outside of that Tampa Bay Washington game, I guess Chicago, New Orleans doesn't do a whole lot for me, but I do like watching the Bears lose. So that'll be a little bit of fun for me anyways, just on the inside. And trust me, I'll be rooting for Washington to upset Tom Brady. Nothing will make me happier than to watch Washington do that. That's obviously probably not going to happen. We'll get to that game, but yeah, we got good weather, a little cold, but not a lot of wind, no precipitation. This should be honest football this weekend. It should be a lot of fun. And again, it's a historic weekend. More playoff games in one day than we've ever had in the history of the league. I think it's awesome.
You know what the good thing about this, too, is when we take a look at it, because here's always where the rubber meets the road. We know Frank Reich, coming from Philadelphia, really started that analytical process of let's be heavily aggressive. If the percentage points tilt in our favor to go for it on 4th down or, not kick the field goal, go for 2-point conversions, they will do that. But I always have this, inclination, and it usually comes true when you get into the playoffs. It's almost like analytics go out the window and that gut feel comes back into it. Like regular season, right? 4th and 3 from the 50, 3-3 game second quarter. Analytics say go for that, but do you go for it, or do you punt the team back inside their 5-yard line? Because specifically why I'm asking this is 51 points doesn't seem like a lot. But the 51 points to me, Kyle, sitting there because it's a reminder going, hey, Donnie, this is a playoff game. Every inch means everything. Maybe if you play it more conservative, you can flip the field and say, hey, we might get this first down at midfield. Doesn't guarantee we score here, but if we don't get it, they get the ball at the 50. Tight game, punt it down to the 10-yard line. Let's play some defense. Does that enter into it when we look at totals here for the playoffs?
Oh, I think it has to, right? And nerves and everything else. Another thing I love about this game is Frank Reich going into Buffalo. I mean, it's one of my favorite memories as a kid watching Frank Reich bring
the right
Buffalo
thing,
back.
Sure.
Yeah, from that 38-3 halftime deficit against Houston, or 35-3 against Houston, and
Yep.
coming back. That was led by Frank Reich, Jim Kelly leaving with injury. So there's a whole bunch of cool narratives here. I think this game's a lot of fun, but you're absolutely right. Like, nerves have to play into it. Like, teams are probably going to be a little bit more conservative, especially, a team like Buffalo doesn't have a ton of playoff experience. Phillip Rivers desperately wants that first ring. It would be, he would probably be devastated to lose in this wild card round. This is probably the best supporting cast he's had in a long time. And unfortunately for him, he runs into the hottest team in the league. Don't you think that they would love to be playing a team like Cleveland this week? The Colts would be a lot happier with that. But this game's going to be a lot of fun narratives. But you are right. It has to give you some pause just because of the nerves. But once these teams get going, that 51 number seems too low to me. I'll be hitting the over in this game.
And if I ask you, because let's do this for each one of these games, like, not a surprise player, but a dominant player in this football game. Like, when we're done here at about 4:00 on Saturday, you're going to look back and say, they won because of this guy. And to be honest with you, for Indianapolis, the Colts, it's not Phillip Rivers, it's not T.Y. Hilton, it's not head coach Frank Reich. It is that running game. So I'm going to go, if we take a look at it, not specifically for a player, because we can all say, each one of these backs can get off. And I love Nyheim Hines as well. But the offensive line for Indianapolis, I think they could be road graders and control this game. Which, like I want to say, linebackers, corner. What section or player are you going to look at the end of this football game that says, hey, not just Jonathan Taylor, but the actual thing is going to work out? Who do you got on this one?
If the Colts win, it will be DeForest Buckner wreaking havoc up the middle of that defense, taking Josh Allen, making him roll out a little more, making him uncomfortable, making some plays, putting Buffalo in the third and long scenarios, taking those running game backs out of the game and allowing them to drop back and sort of spy on those third and longs. DeForest Buckner, AFC Defensive Player of the Month for the month of December. He has to have a big game. Get Josh Allen uncomfortable. That's the best chance for the Colts to win on the defensive side of the ball.